Hello Duelist, Tombox here, and in this video I'll be traveling the design journey of Mystical Space Typhoon.
Hi there, my name is Joseph, I'm from England, and I would MST that.
So first off, I would like to share with you guys this full art Mystical Space Typhoon painted by Joseph himself. He's got a lot of stuff posted on Reddit, and you guys can check out his stuff at his channel later on. I'll give him a big shout out. This one negates. No, but in all seriousness, destruction does not mean negation. Does not mean this. Just bear that in mind. If you don't understand why certain cards fizzle, look up continuous spells and traps and their resolution. If anything, look it up in the rulebook. MST does not negate. Now, about Mystical Space Typhoon, I kind of want to travel the journey of why we have so much crappy spell trap removal in this game of Yu-Gi-Oh! And why do they exist? And how come a lot of the cards got a lot better? Well, it's pretty obvious. You're gonna be like, oh, it's power creep. And a lot of it does have to do with power creeping. But why did we have to get so much like unusable stuff early on? Well, before MST was a thing, we had Remove Trap and Dispel, Harpy's Feather Duster, and Heavy Storm. As you can see, the spectrum was really bad stuff, situational, and we have, of course, generic good stuff. But of course, Mass Destruction was a bit too much, and I guess later on in the R&D phase, they decided to create one of the most powerful spells and traps, well, spell in the game, Mystical Space Typhoon, a quick play. I believe this card was even beyond its time when it was released. It's just so good, and back then, spells and traps do not exactly have effects that activate in the graveyard. They don't have any contingency, and that part was not in the game yet, which made MST a very free back row pop. Like, maybe you have to deal with some certain things were chainable, but back then, most spells and traps weren't exactly chainable, and the things that you feared the most, they had like a battling condition, like Mirror Force. Even if it was like a Ring of Destruction, you would probably pop it before you even got the summoning. So it was like nothing that you really fear too much about. Now, because of that, MST became the benchmark of all spell trap removal, because it was like the one for one. It was fair for, I guess, both players in most cases, and because of that, it was very hard for Konami to design a card that would surpass it, because if they did, which would have been another Heavy Storm or Giant Trunade or whatnot. Giant Trunade is gonna be another story. It got banned because it promoted way too many OTK when OTK became like the thing of Yu-Gi-Oh! Now, MST, how do you design something that's like a solid one for one that pretty much goes unpunishable? If you actually put in stuff that's more powerful, then you're gonna lose players playing spells and traps, and you're just gonna get a very monster-centric game where eventually people won't even run MST because spells and traps are not viable at all. But then if you design too weak below it, then it's trash, and they kind of went that route by adding more and more conditions. So during that whole spiel or phase or whatever you want to call it, during that phase where MST was the spell trap removal to have, you had stuff like Dust Tornado, which was okay, not bad, not too far off, but it was a bit slow because it was a trap. But everything that they released for a while were just traps that had more and more condition, or if they released a spell, it would have a ridiculous restriction, like Mystical Wind Typhoon. You had Gust, Pidgey uses Gust, you had Driving Snow, you had Chain Whirlwind, you had Tornado. Like they had so many conditions. They didn't want like a blowout like Tornado. You must be like 3 spells and traps, and then you can pop 1. In other words, just bring a die, because you're gonna be like randomly hitting one of these. It's gonna be blind for the most part. It's just very awkward. They created all these awkward spell trap removals that no one's gonna use, just because they have already designed one of the best ones out there in the game. If they slowly progressed it, it would have been an interesting aspect to how the game would have evolved, but they already started with one of the best right from the get-go, and that's why Mystical Space Typhoon did warrant itself into the FNL list, the Forbidden Unlimited list. So it did get limited, semi-limited, and then eventually when we realized that we needed more MST because all these powerful traps are becoming a thing. Bottomless, you got Phoenix Wing Wind Blast, you got Solemn Warning, Solemn Judgment, all these things were still available. Then the game became so... It became about not letting your opponent play, and then eventually MST started to come back. However, as it came back, new mechanics got added to spells and traps for when they were destroyed, so they had trigger-like effects, they could activate in the grave. They just had all sorts of wacky effects that go beyond the capacity that MST can deal with, and that's when we started to get new variations that were good. So here are the 5 that I thought that were pretty interesting in terms of how they managed to deal with the new mechanics, new meta of the game. So starting off with Night Beam, being the normal spell that could target a set spell trap and destroy it, and your opponent cannot activate that spell or trap in response. Because of all the new chainable stuff available in the format, Night Beam became super useful in that regard to actually just pop chainable stuff without giving them the chance to actually chain it. That's why it was able to do certain things that Mystical Space Typhoon was not able to do. And the next card that I kind of want to go into is the legitimate hand trap that came out in the battle pack, Typhoon, without the Mystical Space. So Typhoon was the hand trap that had a certain timing window that MST did not have. It was able to hit face up spells and traps during your opponent's turn from your hand. You activate it from your hand and you can pop your opponent's spell trap as long as you don't control it yourself. Very useful, especially against floodgates, especially during the pendulum format when Clifford's was a super big thing and you were able to pop their scout before they even got to access it, before you even had your first turn. That's why it was super interesting when this card became a bit of a thing and people consider it in their side deck over Twister. Because even as a trap, you can activate it from your hand during your own turn, which was actually pretty interesting, so you didn't have to pay the extra 500 life points if you didn't control a spell trap during that time. Now moving on to some of the much more powerful spell traps, we're going to go into Galaxy Cyclone. Galaxy Cyclone, of course, it did not full out replace MST. Many people thought that it would because it was like more of a 2-for-1 than a 1-for-1. You were able to pop a set card, and if you activated it and targeted a set card, even if they chain it, it would still be destroyed because of the new wording of destroy it rather than destroy the target. And in the graveyard, you can use it again to pop another face up. Really good for clearing floodgates and clearing some of like the cards in the Solemn Brigade. So you had that access from Galaxy Cyclone, and it promoted mill decks to actually run spell trap removal so that they weren't like stuck with a very crappy limited toolbox, and if they milled their MST they would be out of an option. So that card definitely like revitalized a lot of the milling type decks. Okay, I'm gonna go on to the next card that basically needs no introduction. Most people hate this card already, especially if you play control decks. It's Twin Twister. Basically 2 Mystical Space Typhoons shoved into one card. This card's ridiculous, let's be honest here, especially for decks that synergizes with the graveyard. Ditching is not a cost. This is legit 2-for-1, being a quick play. I don't know what I can say. Pendulums, clear scales, you can clear, set it, and then clear 2 back row, or even it totally defined it so that the set 1 monster and set 2 back row play is no longer viable. 1 Twin Twister clears it off and you can pretty much just OTK from then on. Twin Twister is just 2 MST shoved into 1 card. Certain players don't like it because they don't like to pay the cost, but for, of course, like what I said before, if you play a Grave synergizing deck, then there is no cost to this card. So we've finally traveled to the Cosmic area outside of the galaxy into the Cosmic Cyclone. Basically, it's Mystical Space Typhoon and DD Crow. If DD Crow flew into a Mystical Space Typhoon, infected the whole thing, this is what you get. You pay 1,000 life points and you can banish a spell trap on the field. That's huge because a lot of the cards right now, they got floating effects. They have their grave, you can activate in the grave, you destroy it, they activate, they do something. Well, this card basically bypasses everything for 1,000 life points to maintain control without giving your opponent any what sort of advantage is crazy good. I can see this card legitimately replacing Mystical Space Typhoon. Like, paying life doesn't seem as bad now. Like, if you think about paying life for control, you can pay for Solemn Scolding. Like, all the Solemn Brigade cards cost so much life. Paying 1,000 to get rid of a problem card I don't see why not. It's like, this card may be the true successor to like a clean 1-for-1 in terms of spell trap removal. Anyways, that is all I have for this segment. I hope you guys enjoyed and learned something about why the cards were designed as they were. And as long as cards get more powerful, we're only going to get more and more powerful versions or more versatile versions of spell trap removals. If you guys like this video, please give it a thumbs up. But first, there's a message from Josepher.
Hi there guys, my name is Josepher and I actually made the MST that you're seeing right now on MST.TV. Feel free to check out my channel in the description below, where you'll see a bunch of different full art paintings, as well as like loads of different other content like video games and more Yugi stuff and all sorts of things. But you can see examples like MST, Call of Haunted, Denkosaka, or art called Christia, and my most recent one, which would be Thunder King the Kaiju. And yeah, I mean, feel free to like and subscribe to the channel if you like what you see. And I'm very thankful to MST.TV for like featuring me on their channel, because I know that they're very busy people and they have a lot of work to do themselves. So thank you ever so much for that. In terms of what I think the best form of spell or trap removal would be, I think the original is always going to be the best. I love MST. It's just good. There's nothing bad about it. Though I do think that Twin Twister is arguably just as good, especially in the pendulum format, where it's just an important thing to get rid of everything all at one go. But yeah, anyways, thank you very much for having me guys, and hopefully I'll speak to you guys later.
Anyways, please subscribe to MST.TV if you want to see more discussion. I think we have some content related to cards coming out in the future. And please subscribe to Tombox TV, where it's my personal channel. And as always, don't forget to hold on to your MST, play your Twin Twisters, and sack your Cosmic Cyclone.TV.